We've got a lot going on in today's means test. David King is here. Hello to you, Kingy.
Morning, G. How are you?
Let's get into it with a King's Gambit for Victoria Police, made for more. Search police careers, because my clock management was poor last week. We missed PFI on Sydney. I'm not missing PFI on Sydney this week because I'll never hear the end of it. King's Gambiters.
A couple of things I need to talk to you about too that have come across my desk. I want to talk about the and one effect, just adding one player in of significance, not the 3 or 4 changes you make because you got a role player coming in, a role player going out, or some young players coming in, basically swapping young magnet for young magnet. But when you see what Essendon were able to get out of Jordan Ridley coming back, and the Essendon fans know what this guy is, they know the levels that he's been at over the last couple of years. He's been banged up by injury the last 12 months or so, and he's the one. He's the one they've been waiting for. Everyone talks at Essendon about his influence in the 2022 season, where I think he was best and fairest, and he was just a dominant force playing on players that were too big for him and still playing well. So now he's in his natural position. So the N1 effect was huge, and they had their best intercept game for a long, long time, and it wasn't on the back of Ben Mackay. So this is terrific that your prime defender can just defend. And if he has to win the ball back for you, well, he can. We know he's capable, and we've seen what he's done. So then the intercept game goes to Laverty and Ridley. That's exactly how it should be. So they're further up the field. They're winning the ball back at halfback rather than fullback. It's a different game when you're doing that. You're almost attacking straight away. So the intercept is an offensive gearing, not save the game in defence. So it sort of got me looking through the injury lists to find, okay, who's the next one?
Yep.
Who's the next and one? Clearly it's Patrick Dangerfield. Because the Muggle midfield at Geelong is not getting it done. But as soon as you put his magnet in, you change from defending everything in the midfield to, hang on, now we've got one that's going to rip, tear and bust and create trauma amongst the 4v4 battle. And his impact on clearance and contested possession, that player, when he came from Adelaide to Geelong, he changed their mix straight away. When Lachie Neale went to Brisbane, he changed their numbers and their mix straight away. So that you go from losing 6 a week to winning 6 a week. It's that type of effect. And we'll track that when he comes back in and what he does. And he's not the 25-year-old Patrick Dangerfield, but he still brings that trauma. And the one I think that we're really going to look forward to, and because of their form so far, the Sydney Swans, what's Callum Mills going to do to the Swans? Where's he going to play, and what's he going to do to their game? Now, everyone just sort of says, okay, he'll just come in and play half back. Well, he might not play half back. I mean, their back line's going really well. Their midfield's low flying. Can you get more aggressive? Could he play centre forward? And then you can talk about Parker coming back after that. So there's a couple at Sydney that we just haven't seen. And given their form, what's the scope? What's the ceiling for this group? So, Joey came up with some great numbers last night on where they're at as a team, and it just got me thinking about that one player coming in. So Will Day comes back as coming through thick and fast on the text, and what he's done to them, and you can see that impact. Mitch Lewis will have that effect, the key dominant forward. Tom Lynch at Richmond, Oscar Allen. No one talks about those sorts of players. So there's the short-term pain ones, which I'm not really getting involved with, the Cheras and the Kellys and, Jake Lever and those sorts of guys. But, Tom Liberatore, Isaac Rankins, there's a few of those that when they come back in, your team looks better, no doubt. But these guys have been absent, all year, and they're going to go bang. So I'm really looking forward to see where that can go and what effect it has.
The and one, the King's Gambit for Victoria Police, looking for a career that gives you more. Search police careers, Victoria Police, made for more. Ollie's been plotting our categories throughout the year, and I've noticed that the Saints have sort of been progressing through the categories. They've been a curiosity, and they've been an open question, and they've been a pressure index.
And Ollie needs a hobby.
I feel like they might be the big issue now. There's enough St Kilda people around my world at the moment, just that the worst moments are when you can't see the light anymore. So they played the young players last year, lived the whole season in the 8 and made it. Now they find themselves at 3 and 8 and in 15th place and looking so far away from where they were. I couldn't quite grasp whether I was supposed to take that as a positive or a negative.
But I think that's what he's saying. It's a choose your own adventure, isn't it? There'll be some that hunt the negative and you'll find it easily. There's so much obvious material there. Or if you want to hunt the positive, you can. You can say, well, this can correct quickly because we saw last year to this year. So it can flip again in the next 12 months. It can flip again in the next 4 weeks. But they do have serious problems. I mean, if you really want to have a look at last year versus this year, which I think is exactly what Ross is asking us to do, not fingernail deep, Gerard, please. So what they were able to do is that they were able to stop the opposition from scoring when they had possession. So when the opposition got the ball, second best in the competition at restricting that. Now, that gives you so much scope to win games of footy because you're going to be in games for long periods. And people don't like the fact that they created low-scoring games because they just defend first. And then if they could score 8, 9, 10 goals, they were a 50-50 chance of winning. It's a hard way to live and it's a hard watch in a lot of ways, but that's a Ross game. So last year, their defensive 50 was bulletproof. We were talking about Wilkie a lot last year, top 3 in the competition. So let's fast forward. So with the footy last year, they could move the ball end to end, but they had trouble scoring. So it's only a small part of the game. It's only a small part of the game. So this year, they're bottom 4 or bottom 5 for stopping the opposition from scoring when they get the ball. So that's the shift. If the other team is getting reward when you turn it over, and they're not a gifted enough team to go in a shootout to engage in all right, let's have a race to 100. They're not that good, is the bottom line. But they were able to stay in games long term last year. So I think last year. I had high hopes for them this year because I thought those young players would take a step. And it's probably shocked me the first block of 6 weeks where they didn't. I thought Owens would have had a terrific year. I saw Mateus Filippo do some things in pre-season. You say, yeah. And then there's some others that we really hadn't seen. I thought they'll get some opportunity and we'll see them. I wonder whether we've seen all of those guys yet. I mean, if you're going poorly as a team, don't reward the same blokes. Expose the next level and maybe be shocked by a kid or two. And they may not be ready and you may be rewarding ahead of time, but you're rewarding those guys while you're half punishing the others with selection. I don't think we've seen enough of that. So I would challenge Ross to expose some more kids and just see what's there. Find out what's there because sometimes you can be pleasantly shocked by the young fellas. And let's be honest, the senior core blokes have let them down. They haven't been the players that can shift games. So there are problems there. You can argue the fact on what the quality of player and do they have to go back to the draft and do they have to get free agents? Of course they do. Everyone's a free agent you miss to someone else is effectively putting you down the ladder. So that it's tough when you're at this club. North Melbourne have been in this club for a long time. Hard to get a free agent of significant importance or influence to your football club when you're this team. So they got a challenge on their hands as a club. Not just as a coach to attract. But in the end, if you're ace, king and queen, don't play like the ace, king and queen. It doesn't really matter what the rest is doing. They don't have the man. And we all thought the man was going to be Max King. It isn't. We all thought the man, has been Jack Sinclair. He hasn't been that player this year. I don't think he's adventurous enough with Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller. He may well be the next best. I look at some of the specific numbers. There's really no damage to St Kilda when they leave stoppage. I think they scored 1 goal from stoppage on the weekend. I'll just double check that. I'd hate to get the numbers wrong against Ross because it's a numbers game. They scored 1 goal, 2 from clearance. Well, that's ridiculous. So I look at how they exit stoppage and when they exit stoppage by hand. So they're ranked sort of 14th at leaving by handball. I think that's the most aggressive way of leaving, and that gives you the most damage on the other end. They don't score when they leave by hand. They're the worst in the competition at leaving stoppage by hand to getting return. Now, to me, that just means your first received players don't bring damage. So if that handball is going to a Brumby, you'll get a Brumby results. If it's going to someone with some ability to step and make a correct decision, I'd like to see Higgins in the middle more. I'd like to see Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller in there. Mix the magnet. Sometimes they'll look wrong. They'll look out of way. We're going to talk about Switkowski later on going in at centre bounces late for Fremantle. Now, that's not a natural magnet that you would move in there, but they can have a big impact. And I do think it has a twofold effect. To take the one out who's underperforming, to say, hey, mate, this is not your given right just to be a centre bounce midfielder for us because that's how we drafted you. You're underperforming, you're out, we're giving this guy an opportunity. I don't think he's done that enough.
If you quickly review their long-term aspirations, they did an independent review of their list around the Brett Ratton sacking and determined that they were better than their results that had achieved. They then made the 8
or is
and
that
had a really good year.
Yeah.
So this is not an external view. That was the express view of the president.
That's just your capabilities, though, isn't it? Isn't it just this is what we're capable of? I don't understand the we played above ourselves mentality. It's just your capabilities. How do you play? You play to your best or to your maximum. You can't play above that.
Well, they were happy to sheet it home to the coaching to justify the move that they wanted to make. And you can make whatever move you like, but they were prepared to say, no, it's the coaching, not the list.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of big, deep breath time now. I think they'll play a good month of footy later in the year,
So
and
can I
we'll sort of
flip the
half sit
question?
there to go to what end,
Yeah.
and then what do they do with their list?
So do you feel that if they hadn't made the coaching change, they'd be in a better space?
No, that's not my contention. They said
Yeah.
all we can do to judge them is they did the work, they did the study,
Yeah.
and they were prepared to blame the coaching,
Which is their right, though, isn't it?
which is their right.
Yeah, that's their job.
But we were suggesting this might be your list,
Yeah, but
and it looks like their list.
Well, to be blunt about it, and clubs hate when we do this. We get a lot of feedback on this, Gerard. We are fingernail deep on 18 clubs, and they are full brief on one club. So we can't compete. Our knowledge can't compete with their knowledge. So when they do an absolute deep dive like this, you have to endorse. You have to elevate their thoughts over your own, even though in the long run you might be proven correct.
I accept that that's right, but you're also entitled to judge what they did. And you go, no, the likelihood was it was the list all along.
Yeah,
And it still is now.
Or he wasn't the man.
Yeah, which is total, but that's not what they said. That they justified their move as this list was capable of more than they were getting from it. And that looked the case last year, but it now doesn't. At 3 and 8, that doesn't look the case anymore.
So how long do you have to? So he's shown that capabilities last year, though, didn't he?
Yes.
And they've failed this year. So they're two separate discussions, aren't they?
Which holds greatest way?
Well, they move on the coach and they get the seat. They go to finals first year. I think most people said good move.
So I feel like you're
It's a-
misconstruing. I'm not saying they shouldn't have changed the coach. I'm saying the problem is the list.
The
Is
problem.
the lack of elite talent on that list.
I think there's a bit of system in it as well.
Okay.
I think it's a safe system, and
Are they going to be successful by 2026?
by 2026,
Which was their
Gee, it's
that
a
was
long
their
time.
line.
Wow, we've said this before, and if you can land a couple of free agents and you do get those young guys to follow a normal path of improvement, it can change. But to win a flag's a big question, Gerard. Gee, I wouldn't be putting my money on that. Got a lot right.
Learn your lessons. They're painful to learn.
Yeah, and that's part of growth is for these young guys. We're fascinated by Mitch, the coach. I think ever since Kane called him a genius, we all feel like we want to work out whether he's right or wrong, and it does create a buy-in and an investment. It's probably unhealthy for Sam in the long run, but he gets over-indexed on the good performances and the bad. But last week they put behind them pretty quick. What they did yesterday from stoppage was unbelievable. So I'm a strike rate lover. So across the course of the year, they've been 12th rated at winning a one clearance getting on the scoreboard. So 86 points per 100 one clearances, right? Yesterday they went at 150. So almost, 70% improvement.
Yep.
Like ridiculous numbers. And they just blew them away. They were just too tough. 57 points from clearance against the Brisbane Lions. Who had Lachie Neal in there, who was doing everything he could to fight the fight. But they've only had 3 better results than that in the last 5 years. And one of them was against North Melbourne this year, who we know where they're at, and West Coast last year, and we know where they were at. So that performance, it has to be seen to be believed. I thought, we've talked a lot about Warple in the first block of the year, first 6 or 7 weeks, getting back to that guy that won the best and fairest a few years ago. Newcomb was as strong as I've seen him yesterday, stepping through traffic. It made me think, maybe I'm giving too much credit for this, but at the moment we're highlighting Warner and Reid a lot with their tackle breaking. And I think across the competition, players don't miss much. And I think they're all thinking, you know what, why aren't I doing that? Because Newcomb was one of the poster boys a couple of years ago for breaking tackles. And he sort of lost that. When he first came into the comp, we thought, wow, where's this guy been? How's he been stuck at Box Hill? I think they're looking at the competition and saying, I can do more. I can be more. And certainly Will Day's had an impact on this midfield as well. We're not underselling his work, but I just want to give Warple a real shout out because I think he's fought a one-man fight for a little while.
Yep. So started at the start of the season, sort of frustratingly slow from where they left off last season, frustratingly slow picking up the lure, but now right on it, right on that path that we were judging them on at the back end of last year where they were winning admiration for both style and substance.
Yeah.
And that they've restored that by the mid of the season. Do we agree with that?
Yeah. And given the impact of injury from that one training session, they lost the fullback. It's hard to lose fullback, full forward, and Jath, who's their wild card wingman at that stage. So they'd had a significant injury toll.
The pressure index is left to be the Lions in the aftermath of it. As you flagged about 5 or 6 weeks ago, this would quickly turn from a conversation, could the Lions make the top 4, to will the Lions actually be making the 8? And that's what's transpired. Here's Chris Fagan with the team at 4, 6 and 1 after 11.
They're having that year, aren't they? And you never want to be that coach. You know, they've been so good for the last 5 years. The narrow loss in the grand final, I think it cuts deeper than we all recognise. The investment to get there and then to be so close, to be 2 minutes from winning it, I think it does shake your pre-season. It does change. It does make you think about the game differently. And what if? And it's always in the back of your mind. Injuries hit, poor form. Their best players. They've got too many players of high quality that meander through games, like Cam Rayner meanders through games. Zach Bailey can do some unbelievable things, but they meander through games. Charlie Cameron, he had an opportunity to really get him going yesterday. Just misses those set shots directly in front, 30 out. You're a top liner. We celebrate this guy. He'll do it at home, but they needed it yesterday in the first quarter when they were on the rocks. And then you can go back to all the others. But in the end, I know going to a game that the Lions are involved in, that of the top 6 players on the field, one of them will be Lachie Neale and one of them will be Harris Andrews. And I got no idea who the next 4 are going to be. I reckon with most clubs you can say, I reckon this guy will be there. He's 7 out of 10 every week. He's 8 out of 10. So to go past this guy, you're going to have to play a pretty good game. Just don't have that with Brisbane. Don't have that guarantee anymore of who the others are that are coming along. And that's why I've been pretty strong overnight in saying, is it time for a fresh voice and a change, a different plan? No slide on Chris Fagan, but do they need a new system, a new style? Is it a bit flat? Is it a bit hollow at the moment? Are they going through the motions? And you can say that's this year, but they've been up for a long time and it is a dip year. But is there an absolute guarantee that they bounce again next year? Is there a guarantee that Rayner's going to be a better player and Bailey's going to be a better player? I'm not sure. I really like the young forward. We talked a bit about Morris. He looks like he's going to be a real player, but they thin out pretty quick. Is Ainsworth going to be there? Is Sharp going to be that guy? Berry, have they seen the best of Berry? I mean, what more do you need to see from Berry to say that he's going to get you back to the promised line? And then you got Jack Payne, who just makes these big mistakes. There's so many things that detract from their ability to win games from guys who should be better.
So I would take a slightly more optimistic view of the capacity to bounce because they've got 2 Ashcrofts and a Coleman. So you said, and plus they're getting a look at some young talent now. So I wonder what's the purpose of the back end of the season. I don't think I would. Too much of the outside is about giving up. You don't give up. I would reframe the back end of the season and go, so what sets us up for next year? Instead of the tooth and nail struggle to finish 7th, what in the back end of the season around our program, around our style, and around our personnel, what can we do to set us up for the bounce and work on the basis that, no, our time is not done. This is the gap here. And these are all the reasons. You don't have to agree with this. This is just what it is. I wouldn't get into the tooth and nail struggle to finish 7th. Right. I'd get into the what sets us up for the bounce in round 1, 2025.
So how does that look?
Yeah, so that would be my question. Then you can only do that at a bye, so now's the bye. But if you're talking about a tweak in style, if there's been any thought in their brains trust around, okay, let's have a look at it. Let's have a look for a 4-week patch if we made this adjustment to what is our core of playing. I wouldn't waste the back end of the season in the tooth and nail struggle to finish 7th. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so for that to happen, you've then got to look at your list, is what you're saying. Find those 2 or 3 youngsters that could potentially add some spark or
So
some
there
flavour.
are 6 youngsters in there yesterday. I'd be prioritising which ones of them are in contention for in our best team next year. So let's not waver on them, and maybe give them added responsibility along the way, where you prioritise him over the 150 game player who you will know. But that idea of, is there something within our game that we've contemplated tweaking that we would never do because we're right on the cusp of winning the flag? Is if there was anything in their brains trust on that, I would have a look at that in the second half of the year. And if it's 4 weeks where you go, oh, this is a bit wonky, I'd live with those 4 weeks to see what it might give you next year.
I'd love to see them just free themselves up for a week. Just play aggressive corridor, run and gun, link up. Let's try and get 20 handball receives each. Let's just go flat out and see where it takes us, because at the moment the precision wide, that game's not working. So you've got to give up a fair bit as a coach to do that.
Yep.
And it can go horribly wrong. And I'm half thinking that there's a bloke down at Geelong that might say, look, I've done enough down here. I've had a pretty good run down here. And if you could get him to Brisbane, what does it do? You go from a very good coach that got you to a grand final, full ticks, got you out of a rebuild quickly, into contention amazingly quickly, into a grand final, but you got a great one that's done it year after year and won the big one.
So let's zero in on them, shall we? On Geelong, who have now lost 4 in a row after the 7 in the row at the start of the season. So it's the first time Chris Scott has coached a team that has lost 4 in a row, and that makes them the curiosity.
It's the midfield, isn't it? I mean, clearly it's the midfield. And then there's some confusion down back. I know that Stewart's getting tagged, and I know that he's trying to not allow the opposition to dictate terms. So O'Halloran's going to Stewart. He says, well, I'm going to go to someone else. So he'll go and pick up another player, and O'Halloran's just coming with him. And then I think the other back 6 players go, mate, just pick up your man. Just stop mucking us around. And then it becomes a bit of a, who have I got now? Like, what are you doing? I've got him now, have I? Righto. So there's a bit of that. It's just enough to upset some positioning. And then when they're trying to take that zoning sort of spot down back, they're getting picked apart really easily at the moment down back. And it's meaning opposition are scoring freely in bursts. So when they get in there, they're scoring, and then Geelong will come back. Geelong, they're a proud club, excuse me, and they always fight back, and they always put in a strong 20-minute window at some point in the game, and they could have easily won that game. Are we having this conversation if they win the game? Probably not. So I think they got some concerns. They got to have a powwow with the back 6. Boys, what's going on? Sam DeCunning, what's going on? Tommy, can you just pick up? If they tag you, mate. You go and stand where you want to stand, but he's your man. Don't try and roll to another guy. Or move him to the middle. If it's disrupting us too much, let's get him out of there for a while. Let's start the game with him in the middle. Maybe he needs a refresh. Maybe he needs a bit of a release as well. He's been an unbelievable performer. 5-time All-Australian League years. So it's not like he's lost any of that. But they've lost their soul down back, that bulletproof nature. If you drive the ball in here high and long, we're winning it back. I don't care who we're playing. This is our area. We guard corridor, 0 to 30. No one scores here. They lost 8 of 18 one-on-ones last week. We highlighted that. That is not them. They haven't lost 8 one-on-ones down back since Jesus was a boy. And then on the weekend, they just looked. Now, for Toby to kick that goal, like normally for Toby to get that ball, and when it was a smothered ball and it went backwards, that's normally where Tom Stewart is. So they go away from that because he's getting tagged. So I think Chris would be disappointed with that. I think Max Holmes has really he had a good patch. So there's a little bit to like there. I don't know. It's a hard one, Gerard, because I don't think they have the midfield stocks, and I don't want to talk about those same players again in a negative way. But they do set the game up for their half forwards to have more impact. It's pretty much get Dangerfield back and reassess.
Did you see any changes in their midfield as a result of what we'd seen previously?
Yeah.
Obviously, they made changes with the ins and outs. What happened beyond that?
Yeah, well, Not a lot. I mean, what do you see with change? I didn't see any real aggression. I don't see them as game winners in there. I see them as guys that can defend, that can play a role, that can win contest. I don't think the game was separated necessarily by their lack of diligence to task, but they were hammered at scores from stoppage, which is, they got beaten at stoppage, but not by a stack. But they scored when they win. That's not necessarily the midfielder's fault. That's the numbers. The numbers are really poorly because they got beaten down back. So for me, it's more of a down back problem at the moment than a midfield problem. But I can understand both discussions.
And a salute to Toby Green.
What a star! Like David Schwartz did the commentary. I think it was. I was listening. I was on the way in, and he nailed it. There's only a handful of players in the comp can do that, and when they need it more often than not, it's Toby that does it. He's just a star, and it was good to see Riccardi play well. I thought they needed a performance from someone outside of Hogan. He's carried the load for the first half of the season, while Toby's found his form and found his rhythm the last couple of weeks. And for Riccardi to kick a couple of big goals was important for them. And what about the mark down back, Gerard? What about the mark at the end? These Sudanese centre-half backs are just a phenomenon at the moment, aren't they? Mac Andrew and Whateley. It was just so good to see. It's what a highlight.
So if you do this sort of thing and then take all the selfies and be late for the song, you end up on the Today Show on Monday morning on Channel 9.
And I'll tell you what, that jumper, they should never change that jumper. That was a cracker. Some of the Indigenous jumpers are just terrific, but that was striking. I love their colours, the Giant. It's a random discussion, but that jumper looked amazing.
Yeah, the charcoal, that matches their demeanour.
Yeah.
I've always thought that.
Love it.
Never mind the orange, go with the charcoal. Leek Aaliyah, a national breakfast TV star now. So Dreamtime was always going to be a spectacular occasion. It's sort of crossed over. It's an event. Brilliant. Essendon and Richmond fans turn up in huge numbers regardless of what's happening with their teams. I think we were pleasantly surprised to get a contest, which lasted all night, but Dreamtime was made by Jake Stringer and Dustin Martin. Thanks very much. Just go and do your thing. Are you not entertained? Or we were entertained. We were entertained.
Yeah, it was awesome, wasn't it? Richmond were so good, and I was rapt that they put up this sort of performance to challenge the Bombers, and the Bombers are in a better space, a bit more organised, a bit more fluent at the moment. But for Dusty to just wind the clock back and say, hey, still come to the footy. I've still got it in me. It might not be every week, but I'm still here. And I'm still going to catch and kill my own. The goal that we see, the finish that we see, bend around the body from 45 metres to get the ball to curl, there's not many in the comp can do that. But he also won the ball at the clearance. So he'd done all the work to get the ball to there, and which is taxing and in its own way. I thought he was just going to knock it to the top of the goal square and let someone else do the work. But it was almost like he's got this ability to say, you know what, I'm going to make a point here. I'm going to make a little statement to those that have been clipping me around the edges that I'm still here. And I think it's just a real sign that this guy's got just unbelievable confidence in his own talents. And then whilst he's aging, he's still a proud warrior. So let's not run him into the ground. Let's embrace him for the big occasion that's a couple of weeks away. And I think all conversation about Dusty now should be positive. Just put a ban on anything outside of that.
He needed that.
He did.
He needed it, and so did the team. So Adamuze gets to re-establish what the base performance looks like after a couple of weeks where they're all over the shop. It doesn't change the long-term trajectory, but it gives him back a base to work from. And Essendon, so there's going to be times to assess Essendon, probably more relevantly in the next couple of weeks, isn't there? They go to Gold Coast and then they play Carlton. But they have established themselves this position on the ladder, which is there for us to see. They're sitting in second. They were neither compelling nor convincing against either North Melbourne or Richmond, but they've got all their points and they sit there outright second.
Yeah. Can I slightly disagree with you? Just slightly. I think that when you look at the last 4 years premiers, your ability to score from that half-back zone, so just back of the centre square but not quite inside 50 for the opposition, that defensive midfield zone, if you can score from that zone there, that's what they've all been ranked number one at scoring from that zone. Win the ball back, counter-punch. So that's the trampoline effect from that spot, that area on the ground. That was where they were brilliant. That's a different Essendon. And they are evolving. And we talked about Ridley, and he was the major player in that. And I mentioned last night that he had 5 intercept marks in that area alone himself. The team had 9, right, which is the most they've had for 7 years. 9 intercept marks, the purest of turnover, and then off and go. Ridley had 5 of those 9. No one had done that in the competition in the last 10 years. So okay, we can talk the performance down, but it took something amazing to keep Richmond at bay. The Richmond got the Swans playing like that. So they were ripe. If they didn't have that performance winning the ball back in that zone, they were in trouble, the Bombers. Now, Essendon supporters don't want to hear that, but it's great that you can find a way to hold up behind the footy. 83 intercepts for the night they had, which is right up there with their best performances. So I think sometimes you got to look at how they won the game, not just who they beat. So I thought that was a really strong performance in a very good game. I thought it was a cracking game, and lucky they had Stringer early. Those what did he kick 3 in the first? Was just lit the joint up.
The best bits. Dreamtime, all that happened in the build-up and the game lived up to the occasion, which was great. The worst bits is the Optus turf.
Oh,
we can't be accepting of that.
Why was it in such a state?
It's the end of May, and it hasn't presented in good shape all year from the concerts that they had leading in. They're a long way behind. I said on Crunch Time, we got to get Basil onto this. He's got to sort it. You can't have your showpiece stadium looking like that for main event football.
Get Basil on.
That's appalling.
What pool do you reckon Basil's got with the turf over there?
To get that sorted. Find the right person in the right town. The open question around Carlton and Gold Coast. So you did this game. I went over and called it. I'm really glad that I did. It felt like this was the day where Carlton's midfield fronted up to a young Suns midfield who are on pretty good terms with themselves. They'd all had career best days.
Pretty good terms.
Oh, by the way, this is what contested footy looks like.
Oh.
Come to combat and get a lesson.
Oh, Paddy Cripps versus Matty Rowell. Wow. Old Bull versus Young Bull stuff. I think he had 10 clearances to 1 versus 1 at half time. He was exceptional to watch, Paddy, and thanks for putting that on. A couple of things that I want to mention. I want to mention Jacob Wiedering, because I thought that was a return to the old Jacob Wiedering, not just defending his man, but coming off at the right time, spoiling, assisting, intercept marking. So he had 11 intercepts, 3 intercept marks, and I think that game's fallen through the cracks a little bit. This is what we need. This is what Carlton need him to be. The man down back that saves everyone. The Jeremy McGovern. This is him, and this was the way he played in the back half of last year. So I just want to put that on the table, that we have seen an immediate correction there. The matchup of Andrew and Curnow was something you couldn't stop watching. But it was
so good, wasn't it?
It was amazing. But the Carlton ball movement is something that really, Adam Sard comes back into the lineup, makes a complete change. Just his sureness with the ball, like he's going to be aggressive, but not too aggressive. It's going to hit the target, and he's going to follow up and create another option. So he got them rolling. I think McGovern's importance is highlighted by when he was on and off the field on the weekend, and when he's there, he took the awkward matchup of Ben Long.
Yep.
There's some guys that just take those matchups and shut them down, and when you don't have that guy, the player you can't clamp just gets you all day.
Yep.
Ben Long got them all day until McGovern was healthy again during that game. I like the improvement of Kemp, Boyd and Cowan. I think those 3 are growing really well. And Kemp's been harshly judged, I think, over the past few weeks, both internally and externally. But I like what they're becoming. And he looked really confident, Kemp, to do some things. So out of the back half, they scored 75 points, moving the ball out of their back half. That's more than any other game of football for 4 years. 75 points, and they've been really good, the Suns, defensively, but they were just exposed. They were just taken to the cleaner. So it was a really good performance by Carlton. The performance we probably had to see. I like they put Cripps forward again, so they're starting to try some things, down there. Williams going down there was a spark move that I think they could even get more adventurous with him, put him back in the midfield. We had seen him at the midfield late in his GWS days and a little bit in his early Carlton days. So I think he's another one that could be a centre bounce option for them. But it's been a really good reset, if you like, a really good time to gather themselves. They were sort of meandering a little bit, weren't they? But now it looks complete again, and they just wait for a few more to return from injury.
And the Lloyd Johnston backflip. So Kevin Sinclair did this at the Gabba when he took his first Test wicket, the West Indies cricketer.
Did he?
And then Lloyd Johnston just rolled it out. That's so beautiful.
It was unreal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How do you
Moments
reckon
that
you'd go
last.
doing one of those?
Wouldn't get a third of the way round. PFI, Sydney Swans. So our overdue homework here, but maybe as good a now as any. I said at the top of the program, coming into the year, Errol Goulden, he's the best player in the Swans. 6 weeks in, Isaac Heaney, he's the best player at the Swans. This week, Chad Warner, he's the best player at the Swans. This is the perfect scenario when you are in contention. The high-end talent who can all get you, and 2 out of 3 probably will. I love what they're doing.
Well, it's hard not to love. It's a beautiful brand of footy. It's so easy on the eye. Everything's aggressive. Their short kicking game, whilst it reads as an uncontested marking game, is far from that. It's short kicking into a position where we can go and we can attack you at speed. And if you defensively lapse and drop off one player, they'll use that player. So it's a real test your attitude, test your capability and desire to defend at all times. I love what he's done. They've shifted dramatically from a ball winning team to a ball movement team over the last couple of years, and full credit to them. Warner's gone next level and has probably gone past Heaney. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago to you. I still worry about Heaney playing the full season as a midfielder. That's just a little asterisk I want to put there. He hasn't really done it before, and we're at round 11. So these 3 couldn't be doing any more to help them win games. But can you do that? Can you hold that and do that for 25 weeks and be still strong in the last month when it really matters? That's my only reservation. But what they're doing, Lee went through some numbers last night saying that 2 of the 3 are involved. One of the 3 is involved in 2 out of every 3 scores for the Swans. So those 3 are involved in everything. The levels they're at is ridiculous. The Swans are the best with the footy. They're the best without the footy. So the profile wants for nothing. It's if you could draw your own profile. If you said to any coach in the comp, hey, just write down where you want to be strong. Yep. That's where they're ranked number 1. So it is amazing what they're doing. How do you hold it? How do you hold some secrets? Like, are they exposing everything and saying to the competition, hey, pick us apart for the next 3 months? Because that's what's going to happen. I do think at some stage that we will not only see 1 tag in the midfield, that we will see 2 tags. I think someone down the track in the next few months, particularly a team that's out of the finals race, say, okay, we're going to lock onto Heaney and we're going to lock onto Warner and see where that takes them. Because if they are so impactful to their scoring, what happens if we can slice that off at the knees and take the 2 prime movers out? Where does that leave them? Who's the next player to pick up the slack? Do they have that next player to pick up the slack? So that's the beauty of being this club at this stage of the year. But there is a risk that you're too good too early and get picked apart by the comp.
Yep. And that's the only risk to them at the moment.
Sydney versus the rest. Who are you taking?
Oh, you always take the rest. History tells us always to take the rest. But if you're carrying the Sydney card, you'd be going, well, come and beat us. Come and beat it.
It's good enough.
Yeah. And the Dogs were admirable. They'll get their full assessment come these 2 Friday night games now against Collingwood and Brisbane. So they're banged up, but so too are Collingwood. And then Brisbane, what state are they going to be in?
They would have got him. They would have got him if Ed Richards stays healthy and Norton stays healthy. So
it was a great performance.
So the comps. I know. Whilst we're saying that Sydney are shooting the lights out, they still could have got beaten on the weekend by the Dogs, who were very good. I love Bontempelli forward in the last quarter.
I knew you would.
Need more of that. And I think that Bevo is now trusting more players. We're seeing a bit of an evolution here. So let's just judge him on what we see, not what we think.
Every second counts, and the more seconds that you don't have to play bring you closer to victory. And it was in the back of my mind as Friday night unfolded, is Collingwood tested the patience of the umpires progressively. Brad Johnson saw it in real time and he was commenting on it during the last quarter, and then committed the moment that allowed the free kick to be paid, throwing the ball to a teammate rather than back to the umpire. The debate for New Vision Clinics, Keyhole laser vision, new generation technology. Where did you sit on the time delay free kick, King?
Yeah, if the clock's running, I'm comfortable with the free kick. If the clock's not running, exercise some common sense. And I know that doesn't necessarily fall perfectly in the rule book, but I don't think it was. I didn't think the delay was that long that everyone goes, oh, what's going on here? Oh, that's too far. He's organising players while he's hanging on to the ball. They got the ball pretty quick to the umpire. It was to me just the straw that broke the camel's back for the umpire personally. Is that really what we want? Bring in another interpretation, another feeling, another emotion. Oh, this umpire is sick of having to pick up the ball off the ground because a player won't give him the ball back. Not for me. It's too big a penalty. Stay out of the game. The players will sort out the result. Stay out of the way. Call the decision if it's there in game. They're having an awful run, the umpires. Awful run. We've got 4 out there, and we haven't got the capability of having 4 out there that are good enough. We're getting overruled. I'm watching umpires seeing a marking contest. The one that's 8 metres away doesn't pay it, and the one that's 50 metres away says, no, I saw something better than you. I've got a better angle than you from 50 metres away. Come on. So just cool your jets. Take yourself out of the spotlight and let the players sort it out.
Collingwood, what they were able to do, they got 2 points. So they're unbeaten since round 2. They've got 2 draws in there. It's uncanny, really. Unbeaten since round 2. They lost their first 3, haven't lost since. But
yeah, it's very good again. It was a hard watch the game, but when they light up, they light right up, don't they? If the game enters any speed at all, they can go and they can put it on the scoreboard. We talk a lot about the Dacos boys. We talk a lot about Scotty Pendlebury. They just keep fronting up. They just keep getting it done. They took a risk with my check that'll bite them for a couple of weeks, or 3 or 4 weeks. But this is what I want to raise with you. If you knew that you'd lose him for a few weeks, but you'd get 2 goals, 2 out of him in a draw, would you take it?
It's such a good question. If they'd got the 4 points, you would absolutely
they should have got
take
the 4.
it. That's right.
But one umpire was offended. Would you have taken it?
No, probably not. Probably not. Not for the 2 points.
Well,
I'd probably cop the loss.
Say they got the 4.
I would have taken it if they got the 4, yes.
Yeah. So I
would
think
have been worth it for the 4.
I think sometimes you do take those risks, and they certainly did. Can we talk about Freo?
Go.
Freo are involved. I'm getting massive feedback about Fremantle, and I can't stand when they go into slow play mode, which they do regularly, and they argue they play a high handball game. So if they're high handball and top 5 for uncontested marks, and they're the lowest scoring games in the competition, what are they creating? What are they? I don't understand this plan at all. They're the lowest inside 50 games in the comp. They're the lowest contested ball games in the comp. As I said, they're 5th for uncontested marks, but they don't have any real damage associated with it. They say, but we play like Sydney and we play like Essendon. No, you don't play like Sydney. Sydney are the number 1 punishing team from stoppage. Fremantle are 14th. Sydney are the number 1 from turnover. Fremantle are 8th. So don't compare yourself to Sydney. You're not Sydney. You're miles from Sydney. And they don't play with the aggression and that try and win the game, try and rip the game from the opposition attitude. That mindset is not there. So I think that I read the article last week. If Justin's blaming us for critiquing how they play, we can only critique what we see, and they see a different thing. Who's going to tell the emperor he has no clothes on? Clearly, no one over there.
4?
4 for me. I'm putting the Bombers in. They should have been in last week, and we had a bit of fun with them. But if they're going to be this model defensively, then they're in.
4 Collingwood for me. 3?
4?
Yeah.
Gee whiz.
Well, they're afflicted by injury now.
3 Carlton.
Carlton.
I had him in there. I think we had him in there last week.
Well, we stick and carroted last week.
Okay.
We stick teams out. But people don't quite understand where we're coming from. That's all right, because most of the time we don't either. But we've got Carlton at 3. 2, I've got Essendon. You've got?
Pies. Pies are rolling, Gerard. Just get on board. Don't have them at 4. You let yourself down.
And 1?
The winner is?
Sydney.
Yeah, they're just so good to watch. Let's hope they hold. Let's hope they can play this beautiful game and challenge the competition to get better.
Yeah. All right. So those are the seedings this week.